Welcome to the first of many episodes of the Late Start Show with me, Charlie Martin.
And me, Jack Nelson.
We hope you're enjoying your nice break from waking up at the crack of dawn. And for the people at home listening to this on their late start morning, hopefully this can be a fun to listen to as we interview one student and one teacher about their experiences and maybe some of their hot takes about a wide range of topics around US and more. But before we get to those interviews, let's first spend some time going over this week and what it has to offer.
Let's get to our sports section. First, with soccer, the team picked up a good win against Andrews Osborne Academy this homecoming weekend, winning 4-0. The team rises to a 7-2-1 overall record and looks to beat Twinsburg at their house tomorrow at 7.
Their season is looking great, with wins piling up as they become the 18th best team in the state, according to Max Prep, ahead of schools like Revere and Shaker Heights. Even if you can't make their game in Twinsburg, they play next Tuesday at home against Walsh Edgewood, so please look out for that. Next, in football, we picked up a big win against Garfield Heights, lifting the team to a 2-2 record. Although we came from a rough game at Bay, we returned to the school for the prized homecoming game and won a crucial one against Garfield.
Football season is looking promising as they stay home and fight against Akron East this Friday, which will serve as a game before the most important one of the season, against the team up the street next Friday. Hopefully the team can pull together once again and win to bring home an important victory against the school down the street. Next, we go to golf, where they shot a 3-19 team score with Ethan Roberts showing an impressive score of 76. The team finished with yet another impressive placing against some of the biggest teams in the state. Teams looking as dominant as ever, looking to pick up only another high placing at next week's St. Ed's Invitational. Hopefully the team finishes its season well and goes into the playoffs looking for a new trophy to bring home.
With that, we finally go to cross country, where we see some of the most impressive mile times I've ever seen in my life coming out of the team. Looking ahead, they go to the Strongsville Vertical Runner Invitational on Saturday to hopefully bring back some more impressive times and another remarkable placing.
Let's get into some of the biggest news from the week around the school. Homecoming was just this past weekend, and it was great. So many people came to not only support our teams in the morning, but also return to school to go to the dance at night. The theme of disco was definitely fun. Hopefully everyone had a great time. Next, looking at our week's senior speeches, we had excellent speeches from Alec Congdon and Jack O'Neill, and we look forward to more great speeches from Josh Belcher and Johnny Fideli next week.
Well, guys, that's enough from us about the week, and coming up soon are 2 interviews from some of your most interesting people around the school. Senior Vishwum Kapadia and teacher Mr. Summers. They both sat down with us and spoke about many different topics, like the possibility of another house, favorite teachers around the school, and the opportunities that being a head prefect and head of house gives. Also included are predictions for the upcoming Founders Day and what goes into that great celebration. Alright, let's jump into it, y'all. Vishwum and Mr. Summers, up next. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Charlie.
When people think of Vishwum Kapadia, they think of a student who gets involved with everything, enjoys everything that he's doing. How do you see yourself? Because, some people say Vishwum, they immediately think head prefect, right? And while some think Vishwum, tennis pro, right? What's the first thing that you think of when you think of your time and your titles at US?
I don't think of my time in terms of titles at US. I think of how I've grown as a student and as a person, because we all have our different titles, like captain as you grow into an upperclassman, and head of clubs, different activities that we do outside of school. So I like to think of myself as a learner that has grown socially, in terms of how I learn as a student and these types of things that US has taught me. So that's what I really like to think about.
Were you always a leader, or did you kind of have to learn how to do that?
Yeah, I've been trying to be a leader since the middle school and lower school. Obviously, this has helped being at US since kindergarten, because US has taught me so many things from a young age: how to be a leader, how to interact with others. I've always tried to engage in as many leadership opportunities as I could. But yeah, it's been, especially in the high school, like getting used to being a leader has been difficult, but I've learned.
You've done, everything there is. You've done like science research, which we'll get to later, because, I'm still wondering about that. The social entrepreneurship, the sports, all the head prefect. How do you manage your time to do all of that?
Yeah, so I just set out my time every week, like what I'm going to do on a certain day, like know on my Google Calendar when I have a meeting or when I have classes, not always the classes, but when I have a sporting event or a game or something like that. And then I just like to keep my time organized, that I'm going to do my homework at this time, work out at this time, do any other remaining tasks at another time, and then keep time for some TV or something like that at the end of the day. So I always have it organized, and this really helps me to stay on top of things.
And I think that's a problem that a lot of kids struggle with. Charlie and I were asked to speak to the 8th graders, and one of the things we tried to stress to them was time management, because it's an important thing, obviously, but I think a lot of kids struggle with it. Let's go back to the things you're doing. One of the things is science research. I was trying to read the title of your research. I didn't even try to decipher it. The characterization of the dicrotic notch in patients with severe mitral regurgitation. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep, exactly.
All right, can you explain that for us and the listeners, please?
Yeah, so in the heart there are many valves, and sometimes these valves leak, and one of the valves is the mitral valve. And when that valve leaks, it can cause problems for the health of the patient. So doctors go in and they can do open heart surgery, but a more common thing that doctors do is they insert a little tube called a catheter in the vein in the groin, and then guide that catheter into the heart, and then they replace or repair the valve at the heart. And what I was looking at was the dicrotic notch, which is a feature of the blood pressure waveform. And I was looking at how this feature can help predict the success of this procedure. And what I found was that an increase in this feature, the dicrotic notch index, which is what I was studying, has better outcomes for the patient. So if the patient has a greater increase in the dicrotic notch index, then they have a better chance of event-free survival.
What got you into this whole sternot idea and going down that pathway?
Yeah, so my parents are doctors, and I've always been interested in medicine. And in the middle school, we had this young surgeons program where we dissected different things, and dissected the heart one time, and that was fun for me. I did pass out because of the smell, but I did have a good time dissecting the heart. And when I came into the upper school, I did my various science projects, and eventually in the 11th grade I started working on the heart and cardiology, and I got really interested.
And you talked about the Young Surgeons Club. Charlie and I both did that. Doesn't your dad do the heart? Was that your dad?
Yeah, my dad did do the heart.
I thought I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I see myself constantly thinking about everything I do and its impact on my future and how it's important for me. I think Charlie thinks the same way, and I think a lot of people here do, because you do all this work, but what's it for? So you've done all this work in school and out of school. What's it for? What is your why?
Yeah, so some people will say college and getting into college, advancing, being a leader. But for me, it's really how I want people to look at me, and how I want to leave behind my legacy for others to think about me when I leave US. And I just want people to think of me as a leader, as a good person, and those sorts of things. So that's what I try to do, all these things, and try to engage as much as I can in the community so that I can leave behind something that others will look at.
I know it's personally almost impossible to do all these things at one time just by yourself without a group of people personally believing in you and investing their time into the things that you do and really believing in your passions. Who would you say is your in your support system in and out of school, and how have they made a positive impact on your life?
Yeah, so for all the different things I do, I always have different people helping me. And one of the best things is that to find fun in whatever you're doing. So if you're playing tennis or doing research, you have to have fun with it, otherwise you won't want to keep doing it. So I always try to have friends with me whenever I'm doing something in any sort of activity, and that's one thing. And another thing is having good teachers and advisors that are helping you throughout the process, so that if you have questions, don't know where to go from there, then they can always help you, having good coaches, things like that. And then, just my family, they've always, whenever I need anything, they're always there for me. So, that's always great.
I mean, you talked about that teacher's point. I mean, obviously as sophomores, we've had a year of finding out some of the teachers and getting to know them. Who would you say personally are some of your favorite teachers at the high school, and some of the favorite classes you've taken, just for the people who want to know?
So definitely Mr. Atwell. He's the tennis coach here, and I've had him as a tennis coach for 3 years, and he's a really good coach. He's taught me some tennis things and just kept us on track. And I've also had him as a teacher for 3 years in math. And last year I took his logic and proof class, which was a really difficult class. And I learned a lot about math. But yeah, that was one of my tougher classes. But he did a good job teaching us, so yeah.
So you've had this amazing journey. Have you struggled at all, and how have you found the ability to kind of bounce back from that struggle and keep going?
Yeah, so sometimes like when things don't work out, for example, if you're in a sport or doing something like that and and you don't win a game or you get eliminated early, then it's always tough. Or if you're doing research and the results don't come out as you expected, then it is tough. But really just keep going with whatever you're doing and have faith that eventually it'll all work out.
I mean, as head prefect, right? You obviously had to go through the whole prefect process last year and done all that. What does the house system really mean to you? Like, why did you sign up for prefect, go through all of it, rather than just being a leadership position?
Yeah, I feel like the prefect position is like interesting because it brings together all the different grade levels, and we don't really have that except for the sponsor system in any other way. And it's something that, especially in the younger grades, in the lower school, we would feel like pride for our houses and yeah, I'm in this house and I'm in this house. But I don't see that as much in the upper school, which I would like to change. But either way, it's something that binds us all together, and I like that aspect of the house system.
You know, coming from the lower school, right? I've been here since kindergarten too, and I understand like you always look up, right? You always like while in that lower school, you're like, oh wow, like the seniors are so big, right? And like, oh wow, like I wish I could work more with the high school. Has there ever been any pushes? I mean, especially in the prefect meetings, maybe for more joint like things that we do at the lower school and the high school, and because I know Founders Day, they come up and we get to see them and all this stuff. But have you ever personally heard of maybe changes to Founders Day and changes to the whole system in total that you find even interesting?
Yeah, I feel like it's tough to do that because the lower school is kind of separate and we have our busy schedules here at the upper school, and it's tough to communicate this stuff. But we have the like buddies for the seniors, which we're doing this Friday, I think, and we try to interact as much as we can with the lower school. But I feel like the most interactions need to happen in the upper school themselves with like the seniors and the freshmen. So I feel like that's one thing that I would like to see more.
So you're involved in a lot of clubs. What's your favorite club that you've been a part of?
I have to say the Spanish Honor Society. It's not necessarily a club, but I've gotten to see a lot of things, different volunteer experiences, different meetings that I've been a part of, and different communities I've engaged with, and I've enjoyed that. So that's been fun for me, and I've been the leader of that for the last 2 years. So I've gotten to see a lot of things.
One thing I try to do is be like well-rounded so that I can be a leader in a lot of different areas. Like can be a leader in sports, also in science research, academic-wise, and then in other areas as well. What do you think the power of being well-rounded and being able to be a leader in those different areas is?
Yeah, like I said before, you get to see a lot of different things when you go in different communities and be a leader in different spaces. Like in the sports community, if you're a leader in there, then you get to see people who like sports. But if you're a leader at school, it's quite different. And if you engage in as many leadership opportunities as possible, it really helps to see the world and different people.
Now, do you wish there were more leadership opportunities that were like obviously available? I mean, you talked about prefect and all that stuff, but do you kind of wish that there was more of like a freshman prefect almost that could have more joint operations with those head prefects?
I feel like the best leadership opportunities are already there, and the main type of leadership opportunities we're lacking are the ones that aren't named. So if people lose prefect, they often dissociate themselves from the house system and try to forget about that as much as they can. But I feel like you need to have a leader that is not necessarily a named leader, like a prefect or something like that. And that is not necessarily something we need to add, but just something we need to change.
I completely agree. Especially as like freshman, sophomore, junior, they might not be able to have that title as prefect, but they can be heads of clubs, they can be heads of other things. You've been involved with social entrepreneurship. What do you think the power of that is? Just helping the maybe not as fortunate.
Yeah, so I co-founded a nonprofit, Intersect STEM, with a couple of my friends here, Zain Anwar and Alex Vincenti, who just graduated. And we're working to help refugee and international students in the Cleveland area get used to STEM and science. And we're doing workshops with STEM principles that we're teaching them. And it's really been interesting to see how their backgrounds are different from ours, and how they still like science even though they haven't had as much experience with it. And they've been having a lot of fun with these workshops. And yeah, it's been really eye-opening.
I mean, one of the things we do want to talk about, I know this is probably a out there question, but if you had like unlimited power, obviously as head prefect you can't just decide to do and bulldoze the school, right? But if you did have unlimited power, what's one thing you would really like to change at US that may not even be talked about at those prefix meetings and just in general?
One of the best things we have at university school is all the facilities. So we have academic facilities, sports facilities, anything you really want physically you can get at US. But one thing we lack sometimes in the community, which I think we can improve upon, is just supporting each other and just being nice to each other no matter what, and not being super competitive, which is difficult because we're all here to get better and get to where we want to be. But yeah, sometimes the competitiveness gets out of hand and people lose friendships over it, and especially with the prefect stuff, that sometimes gets a little bit irritating for many people. So yeah.
And looking forward all the time, what keeps you present in the moment and giving your all to what you're doing?
Yeah, just trying to stay focused on what I'm doing, and I do my best with whatever I'm doing so that in the future it doesn't hurt me, or I can give my all to the thing.
Also, I personally use my free block to finish some of your homework and stuff, but if you do want to use your free block just to mess around and stuff, where's your go-to place?
I just walk around and see which people are free and just talk to them for a minute, and then go to the next person and talk to them for a minute.
We were talking about how, like, with the 8th graders, right, who were coming out, how to use your free block, and they were, oh, well, we have study hall, do we get to go, like, pretty much fishing and all this different stuff, and yeah, I mean, a lot of times you have to use it for your homework, but I agree, sometimes it's just nice to just get out. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Charlie.
Now, welcome to the show, Mr. Summer. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
When Jack and I first showed up, we're in the McKinley Blue on freshman orientation.
Right.
You were one of the first people we talked to, and you asked us all of these different questions about ourselves and where each of us came from, right? But now the tables have turned. I'm wondering if we could know where you've come from and what's your journey been to this point.
Okay, sure. So I actually grew up in Kent, Ohio, which is south of here. It's, I don't know, probably 45 minutes south of here. And I was there for the first 18 years of my life. My mother's from Shaker Heights, so I do have a Cleveland connection there. But yeah, I went away to school. I went to college in D.C. And then I came home briefly, and then I was back off to Rhode Island for grad school. But yeah, Kent is the place that I call home, and I don't get back there much these days, but I still love that town. I love Kent State University. I didn't go there, but my mom worked there for 35 years. So that is home base for me. Good old Kent.
Going into your journey into U.S., why did you decide to join the U.S. community? How'd that begin?
That's a great question. So I was in grad school in Rhode Island. I was at Brown University. They have an MAT program there called, MAT means Masters of Arts in Teaching. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I knew I loved books and reading and writing, and I liked working with young people. So for me, the career path was pretty clear in that regard. I applied to university school because I knew of it. I actually ran here. I ran cross country in high school, and I came here back in the 90s to run at the Clements cross country meet that we used to have, and I was just very impressed with this school. I saw the campus, the grounds, and it was more impressive now, but even back in 1998 it was pretty impressive. And I remember coming here on the bus and just like looking out at the lower field and saying, oh my God, look at this place, it's amazing. And then got to run in the woods on those beautiful trails, and that was also extremely impressive. So I think that was what planted the seed for me. It's, someday maybe I'll come back here. So, fast forward, I guess not quite 10 years, but 6 or 7 years, I'm in grad school. I'm now 22 years old, 23 years old. And I was looking at good private independent schools in this area because I like the idea of being close to home. And so US was on my short list. They were one of the schools that I was most interested in, most excited about working at. And so I sent in an application. I met some people from the school at one of these teacher conferences. I got a call back from the school about maybe 2 weeks after that meeting saying that they were interested in having me come visit. And I came and saw the school. I taught a class here. I met some of the students and just was very impressed. And so when they did make me the job offer, it was a no-brainer.
Another thing that might separate US from other schools is the house system. What did you think about the house system when you first came to the school?
When I first came to the school, I think I had probably the same thought that I think almost everybody has, is Jesus is a lot like Harry Potter. That was my first thought, was that. And I've liked that. I like the fact of having the idea of having a community within a community. When I was in high school, I had a group of friends, not a very big group of friends, but I had a couple good friends. But I didn't really know many people at the school that I went to, because I went from this very kind of tight-knit Catholic school in Kent to Walsh Jesuit, and I just didn't really know anybody there. And so it felt very isolating, and I felt very kind of lost in the mix, and I didn't really know how to initiate conversation with people because I had been with the same group of kids for 8 years, and so I forgot how to make friends. And so I really love the house system because I think it takes a lot of that difficult, anxiety-inducing type of stuff out of the equation. You don't have to walk into a dining hall and be like, where do I sit? I don't know anybody. You don't have that issue so much with the house system. You get to know kids, I think, in a more natural way in the house system. You really get to build that sense of house identity. And little stuff too, I like the fact that each house has its own color. I think that's kind of neat. It's kind of like we're teams, and I like the fact that it's a neat way to sort of honor people in the community who have left a legacy, because in a lot of other schools, if you're the principal or the head of school or a beloved teacher, that's all fine and well, but as soon as you retire, you're forgotten about forever, But at US, we found ways of making these people's names live on, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, I know both of us constantly look for leadership opportunities, but you do have one of the biggest as head of house.
Right.
Explain to people listening what that process was and what drove you to become head of house.
Yeah, so I think part of it was just observing good mentors. When I started at US, the head of house was a guy who has since retired. He went to Boston, but his name was Phil Kokotilo. He was an English teacher here, and he was the head of house my first year. And then Mr. Strachan became head of house. And Mr. Strachan was just, I still look up to Mr. Strachan. He's one of my faculty role models in the school. He's just extremely level-headed and calm and down to earth. And he might not be the loudest guy in the room. Sometimes I am the loudest guy in the room, but he never is. He's one of these guys who's just very steady and leads by example, and I think just has a lot of gravitas. And I saw that, I guess 18 years ago when he was head of house, and just really admired him. And not that I wanted to be him or anything, but that that was what first made me think this might be a good role that I could someday grow into, because I'd like to, to do it justice like Mr. Strachan has done. So that's kind of where I started thinking about it. I think what really made me want to be head of house, though, was just that over the years being in McKinley House, it really became part of my identity. And I really started to care about the house deeply. I knew with each passing year, whenever we didn't get first in Founders Day, like I felt it hurting me more and more. So that's how I knew that I really cared about McKinley House, was sort of taking those Founders Day's losses harder and harder each year. But I really started to care about the kids in McKinley and just about our community in general, the smaller community within a community. And so, I guess part of it too is that I know I can be loud, but I'm probably not the loudest guy. I'm maybe not the most outgoing faculty member, but I can turn those things on if I have to. And I don't know. I just really wanted to be more instrumental and helpful in bringing the house together and really making it all it could be, sort of helping everybody sort of maximize their potential at McKinley. And I thought perhaps egotistically that I could do that, so I jumped in and they said, yeah, sure, give it a try. So here I am.
Yeah, I know. I personally remember freshman orientation going back to that. Like, most of our group was already together. I mean, we only had one or two new kids in McKinley that year in our freshman group.
Right.
But that day alone, if anything, almost got us closer because we're like, okay, now we're in high school, but we also had you pushing us along and like showing us how to become a better group, and we all really bonded after that. And
you're like, who is this little weird guy with so much energy? He's scaring us. Let's stay together.
Where does that energy come from for the house? Like, what's that competitiveness?
Yeah, that's a good one. Part of it I think is, I used to say, as you guys probably know, I coached cross country for many years here. And that definitely honed my sort of competitive spirit. When I started coaching cross country, I did it because I was a runner myself, and I just liked to run. Like, I ran almost as therapy. It just made me feel good. And then when I became an assistant coach and then a head coach, I started to care more about the boys. Well, I mean, I always kind of did, but I was really focused, not so much on my own running, but on the guys that I was coaching and their success and how to maximize their success. And then when I started to get results, when I started to say, I'm going to put this program in place and see if this helps them be better and do better and win more. And when it did, that sort of stoked this competitive fire within me. I was like, wow, that worked. Okay, I like this. I like this feeling of like helping these guys get to a place where they can be successful in competition. Like, I discovered that within myself as a coach. So I think that's part of it. And I think part of it too, I mean, if I'm being honest, is that when I was in high school, I was kind of a quiet kid. I was in the jazz band and I ran cross country, but I certainly wasn't like the mascot of the class. I wasn't the big man on campus. I was just kind of a quiet guy. I was kind of under the radar. And in my own athletic experience, like, I was always okay, but I was never great. I was never like the top guy. And I don't know that I ever could have been the top guy, but I do think I could have taken it more seriously. And when I look back, I spent my summers in high school not like training for cross country. I spent them like eating ice cream and playing video games. And I look back and I'm like, God, if I just taken it more seriously, I probably could have been a lot better. And so if I'm being honest, probably part of my desire to help all of you guys be better is I look back at my own missed potential and I'm like, I want you guys to be better than I was, because I didn't take the bull by the horns when I could have. And maybe I can prevent other people from looking back at Founders Day 2024 and saying, geez, I could have done better if I just tried, So I think that's part of it. And I think and I say this to my cross-country athletes all the time too, is, the reason we want to be successful here, the reason we want to be number one, or the reason we want to try for number one, it's not ego, it's not because we want to demoralize other teams, it's because we can, that's all. It's because you have the potential, so why not? If you can do it, you should try it, And I think, I'm not saying we're gonna win. I hope we do for Founders Day, but it's not about that. It's about we have this possibility. There's this potential there. So let's give it all we have. Let's not get through Founders Day and think, geez, we could have done better. Let's do better in the moment, And that's how I feel about competition in general. So.
I think you perfectly showcased that when you came up and won the pie competition. That was,
Right.
that was one of my favorite moments.
Before we were talking about the idea, me kindergarten, me in the lower school, I kind of had seen the lower school and the house system as something that's really important to us. It's cool. We all love Harry Potter as a lower school.
Sure, right.
But then when we got to the high school, we may have lost some of that passion for the house just because we think we're older and all of that stuff. Do you have any goals in merging the house system and really making sure like the lower school and the high school is almost one and that we have a cohesive like house system, and how can we like bolster that connection?
It's a great thing to bring up. Right now, I think this goes without saying, the biggest sort of moment we have for lower campus and upper campus connection within houses is probably Founders Day, particularly when the middle schoolers are kind of intermingling with the upper schoolers. And so that's a great time to do that. And I think part of it is, and this isn't the full answer, but part of it is just for upper school students and perhaps upper school faculty members to encourage upper school students to be a little more proactive about talking to the younger guys, mentoring the younger guys, taking the younger guys under their wing, just taking more time to talk to those younger guys. So if you're a 10th grader or an 11th grader, on Founders Day, instead of like ignoring the 7th grader, go up and introduce yourself, talk to them, establish a connection. So I think that's one thing, is just for the older guys to be a little more proactive about talking to those younger guys and working with them and bringing them into the mix during Founders Day. But certainly I think one day isn't enough to establish those connections. So I know right now, like the seniors, for instance, are doing like a buddy program with the younger kids. I don't think it'd be a bad idea to consider doing that on sort of a broader scale. To not just have the seniors going to the lower school a few times a year to meet up with the kindergartners or whatever, but maybe to have other upper school students, sophomores, juniors, also take trips down there just to create more opportunities for them to be with the younger guys. Because those younger guys, they really look up to you guys.
Yeah.
You guys look cool to them. You look like giants to them. You guys also look like giants to me, what everybody does, so that's okay. They really respect you guys, and I think that something to consider. I don't decide policy here. That's above my pay grade. But whoever does, I think it'd be a good thing to consider. Like, where do we create more opportunities for actually physically getting the two campuses together, so that you can interact with those kids more on a more frequent basis.
And I think with Founders Day coming up this Friday, I think it's important to urge the older students to maybe get to know the names of the younger kids, because
that's a great idea.
I remember when I was even in 8th grade, I was 1 year away from high school, and the difference between middle school and high school, it made them seem so much cooler. So even to just get to know some of the kids' names, make an effort to talk to them is important.
And it means so much. I don't know if you guys had this experience yourself when you were younger, but I did. I remember when I was in 1st grade I went to this little Catholic school in Kent called St. Patrick's. But I was in 1st grade, and I was new to the school that year, and this kid was in 5th grade. And when you're in 1st grade, 5th grade is just like,
years away.
Exactly. He just looked like this colossal person to me. But he was nice to me, and I remember that he was playing basketball with some other 5th graders, and I, not knowing anything about etiquette or anything, so I walked up and was like, "Can I play, guys?" And there's like, 4 or 5 were like, "Get out of here," But he came up to me and he was like, "Yeah, man, come on." And he like brought me in and said, "My name's Chris. What's your name?" And that meant so much to me. That this big, giant, cool kid took the time to like talk to me, ask me my name. So I think you can never underestimate how important that is when a guy like you or like you, older guy, takes even like 30 seconds just to talk to a younger kid. That can make a huge difference.
To finish it off, if you could add one house, what would you call it?
I could add one house. What would I call it? I would say Harmon House, in honor of our own Terry Harmon. Not only because I like the alliteration, Harmon House, HH, which is pretty cool, but there are many really impressive people around here. So I don't mean to say that Mr. Harmon is the only impressive or the most impressive, but I don't think a lot of kids probably realize, first of all, how long Mr. Harmon's been here, but second of all, just how much Mr. Harmon knows about everything.
Literally everything.
He is truly a living, walking encyclopedia, and he's a really interesting person to talk to. He's just one of my favorite people on campus, and I think he truly is. I think that word legend gets thrown around a lot here, but I think as far as like actual legends that are still walking around right now, I think Mr. Harmon. So Harmon House would be my choice. As far as the color for Harmon House, I don't know. Do we have a greenhouse right now?
No, it'd have to be. There used to be one.
There used to be one.
Cans, yeah.
I would say like trout green, but I'm open to suggestions if you guys have an idea.
No, we completely agree.
It's just he's really a phenomenal kind of one in a million kind of guy. So
We'll have to have him
he
on.
knows this place better than he knows every corner of this campus. It's unbelievable, really. So if you haven't taken the time to talk to him, you should at some point do that.
We'll have to have him on a future episode
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. No, you really should.
Well, that is it with Mr.
All
Summers. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Great interview. Learned so much about you, house system, and everything.
Indeed.
And
Go McKinley.
yeah, go McKinley.